Welcome to Flawless Shoe Reviews. As a foot and ankle specialist, I'm going to compare the ASICS GT-2014 versus the Novablast 5. Now, apart from the cushioning, which is the FF Blast Max, that's the only similarity that they have. Otherwise, they should be used for completely different purposes, whether that's for walking, standing, lifestyle use, or running. I'm going to break down how these differences affect your gait and how they'll influence how you run. If we look at the midsole first, so yes, we've got the FF Blast Max cushioning, which replaced the FF Blast Plus cushioning in the GT-2000, and that feels completely different on the foot than what we saw in previous models. So it's a lot spongier, bouncier, much more responsive than what we saw on the last models. Whereas in the Novablast 5, we also had an introduction of the FF Blast Max cushioning compared to the Model 4, which was a lot firmer, a lot more performance-like, whereas we got a slightly heavier shoe in the Novablast 5, which is really bouncy and has what ASICS call it a trampoline effect in the forefoot to really spring you off. However, it's a lot bouncier, whereas the GT-2014 is a little bit firmer underfoot, and that's got to do with all the stability features that we find in the midsole that aren't present in the Novablast 5. So first of all, we do have large sidewalls on the inside of Novablast 5 and on the outside as well, but they're slightly further down on the ASICS GT-2000 version 14. They're more towards the midfoot on the inside and the outside of the shoe, and we've got a slightly broader base both in the heel and in the midfoot of the GT-2000 versus the Novablast. Not only that, it's slightly broader in the forefoot as well, and that will influence the fit on top, which we'll talk to you about in a moment. But the 3D guidance system on the GT-2000 does feel different than what we saw in the previous models. So it feels a little bit denser on the inside of the shoe, so when you walk and stand in it, what you'll feel is the foam is a little bit harder to compress on the inside compared to the outside of the shoe. So slightly modelled on what we see in the New Balance 860, but definitely not turning your ankle outward like we see in that shoe. So it just helps to control pronation moments more on this shoe, and we've got a lot stiffer of a heel counter, so the sidewalls coming up slightly later on the stiff heel counter really helps to control those pronation moments. In the Novablast 5, we've got more cushioning underneath your foot with 41.5 mils in the rear foot, 33.5 in the forefoot, giving you an 8 mil drop. And I think having that extra cushioning makes it feel a lot bouncier than the GT-2000 and a bit more responsive, whereas in the GT-2000 we've got 36.5 in the rear foot, 28.5 in the forefoot, giving you a similar 8 mil drop, but we just have less cushioning, more stability features, therefore it's a little bit firmer on the foot and doesn't feel as responsive as the Novablast 5. The Novablast 5 is also a lighter shoe, coming in around 255 grams versus 273 grams in a size 9 men's US in the GT-2000. And as we move up the shoe, we've got a slightly different upper, so we've got more of a woven upper that's quite light on the GT-2000, whereas we've got more of an engineered single mesh on top of the Novablast 5. It's a slightly different fit as well. We've got a bit more room in the toe box because of the wider base underneath in the GT-2000, more of a race fit in the Novablast 5, but it does come in a wide version, especially in the US market, can be a little bit harder to find in Europe. So we've got a little bit less space, but plenty of space in there for the average foot. True to size and length, we've got quite thin tongues on both shoes that are both gusseted, and we've got plenty of padding around the heel counter. We've got a nice pull on top on the Novablast 5 that we don't have on the GT-2000. So two different types of shoes. We've got a moderate stability shoe that's a little bit firmer underfoot but still quite bouncy and springy in the GT-2000. We've got a very bouncy, very responsive shoe, bit of an all-rounder in the Novablast 5. Now when it comes to use cases for lifestyle use, probably a bit more supportive and a bit more functional for day-to-day use in the GT-2000, but it's not to say that the Novablast 5 can't be used. It just got quite an aggressive forefoot rocker, which can make it a little bit unstable for some of you who want to use it for walking or for standing for long periods of time, but most of you may enjoy it for that use case. When it comes to running, we think the GT-2000 is an excellent shoe as an all-rounder if you want moderate stability, so it can do those easy runs, recovery runs, and longer kind of marathon distance running, but it can also do some early stage up-tempo workouts. Whereas the Novablast 5 is a do-it-all shoe, very similar to what we saw in the Clifton 9, so it can do those easy runs, recovery runs, not a problem. Probably a bit too fast for those recovery runs you might find for some of you, but where it excels is if you want to do up-tempo workouts, some race pace workouts, especially at marathon distance or half marathon distance. You might find it a little bit heavier compared to some of its competitors on the market for a 5-10k race pace, but it can also do that if you want to have a shoe that covers all of your bases. So two excellent shoes, a moderate stability shoe, the GT-2000, more of a neutral shoe that can do it all, especially some faster workouts in the Novablast 5. However, if you've got any questions on them, drop in the comment section below. I'll put links to the shoes in the description if you want to check out the latest price on Amazon, Otherwise, if you just found the video helpful, like and share and subscribing does make a massive difference to us. Thank you for watching.